Hello, my name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. A very good evening to you. And today on Worldview, with the Russia-Ukraine hostilities at its peak, we have reports from some Ukrainian and Moldovan officials who have given updates on missiles from Russia that they say crossed Moldovan airspace. Now, with countries of the world reaching out with aid for quake-hit Turkey and Syria, the top humanitarian aid agency in the U.S. government has joined the queue with a juicy aid package. We have details on Worldview today regarding the amount they have pledged. And plus, we will also make a stop out South Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa has made some significant declarations to take effect immediately relating to the country's power blackout crisis. Details of these stories and more in a moment. First on Worldview today, Ukrainian and Moldovan officials have said that Russia's latest aerial attack on Ukraine saw missiles cross Moldovan airspace. Kiev's top general said missiles also flew above Romania, a claim denied by Romania, but later repeated by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky said the missiles represented a challenge to NATO, of which Romania is a member country. A Russian government spokesperson deflected questions about the incident during a regular call with journalists. Dmitry Peskov told media it was a matter for the defense ministry, which is yet to comment. Moldova's country's defense ministry described the missile flyover as a violation and summoned the Russian ambassador for an explanation, having done the same following a similar incident in October. The incident occurred on a day of political turbulence in Chisinau, during which the whole government resigned. For its part, Romania insisted that Russian missiles had not strayed into its airspace at any time, but Zelensky doubled down on the Ukrainian military's Romanian claim, writing that the Russian missiles posed questions for collective security. Meanwhile, Ukraine's second biggest city of Kharkiv and the southeastern city of Zaporizhia have been targeted in a wave of Russian missile attacks, according to officials. Its acting mayor, Anatoly Kotyev, said on Telegram that at least 17 Russian missiles hit Zaporizhia in 1 hour on Friday morning, adding that the missiles targeted energy infrastructure. Russian forces also reportedly launched a series of overnight attacks that knocked out power supplies in parts of Kharkiv. There were, however, no immediate words on casualties in either Zaporizhia or Kharkiv, but Russian forces have been advancing recently for the first time in half a year in the hard-fought battles that both sides describe as some of the bloodiest of the war. In a related development, French President Emmanuel Macron has said he is considering stripping Vladimir Putin of France's top honor. The Russian leader was presented with the Legion d'Honneur in 2006 by former French President Jacques Chirac. The title is the highest French order of merit, both military and civil, and was established in 1802 by Napoleon Bonaparte. But Macron said he is waiting for the right moment to strip the Russian president of the title. He was speaking after awarding Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky the honor on Wednesday. Macron said that the question of Putin's medal was symbolic but important. In the meantime, now Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has criticized France and Germany after she was not invited to a dinner in Paris with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, adding to friction between the European Union allies. Now, Zelensky started a surprise visit to Western Europe on Wednesday with a visit to the United Kingdom and then to France, where he had a late dinner with Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz before an EU summit on Thursday. But unlike last year, when the then Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi worked hand in hand with Macron and Scholz on Ukraine, Meloni was left out in the cold. Speaking to reporters as she arrived at the Brussels summit on Thursday, Meloni, who took office last October, said she thought the snub was inappropriate. She later met Zelensky on the sidelines of the EU meeting. Asked about her comments, Macron said he thought Wednesday's dinner had been fitting. However, things were different when Draghi, a former president of the European Central Bank, was prime minister. Draghi traveled with Macron and Scholz to Kiev by train last June and played a leading role with them in shaping EU opposition to Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. Meloni has pledged to maintain the same pro-Ukraine stance despite the misgivings of some of her coalition allies, telling reporters on Thursday that providing help to Kiev was the best way to bring about peace. The top humanitarian aid agency in the U.S. government has pledged $85 million in urgent life-saving relief for earthquake victims in Turkey and Syria. In a statement, the agency said it is also providing hygiene and sanitation assistance to keep people safe and healthy, stressing that the agency's director, Samantha Parr, has already deployed a disaster assistance response team, DAT, which is currently operating out of the Turkish cities of Adıyaman, Adana, and Ankara. Reports say the U.S. Agency for International Development USAID funding will go towards shelter, cold weather supplies, food, water, and healthcare. The moves come as countries around the world send research, crews, and aid to the region, where over 20,000 have reportedly died. Away from that, now the leaders of Japan and the Philippines have agreed to increase defense ties, allowing Japanese troops greater access to Philippine territory. The defense arrangement signed by Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will reportedly allow Japanese troops to join training exercises to respond to natural disasters and humanitarian needs in the Philippines. The agreement is seen as a step towards broader military cooperation between Tokyo and Manila and could lead to similar agreements between Japan and other nations in Southeast Asia, where competition for geopolitical influence has increased amid a more assertive Chinese presence in the region. Now, Taiwan, which lies between Japan and the Philippines, has become a focal point of intensifying Chinese military activity that Tokyo and Washington worry could escalate into war, as Beijing has promised to take back Taiwan, which it views merely as a rogue province and not a sovereign state. Still in China now, a senior health official in Beijing has urged the country's local leaders to find ways to boost their birth rate. Yang Wenzhuang said officials must take active steps to tackle the detrimental effects of China's long-standing anti-population growth policy. He also urged officials to make bold innovations in tackling the cost of childcare and education. China reported in January that its population had fallen for the first time in 60 years. In 2022, there was just 6.77 births per 1,000 people in China, the lowest birth rate on record, and down from 7.52 births in the previous year. The country's strict one-child policy, which was implemented from 1980 through 2015 to respond to runaway population growth, has been blamed for the decline. Elsewhere now, a Palestinian prisoner who was rushed to a hospital after falling into a coma yesterday has died in Israeli custody, with 2 years of his 12-year sentence left. 48-year-old Ahmad Abu Ali was announced dead this morning at the Israeli Soroka Hospital in the southern Nakab area, Negev. Abu Ali was suffering from diseases including chronic heart problems and diabetes. According to the Palestinian Prisoners Society (PPS), reports say Abu Ali, a father of 9, was transferred to the hospital on Thursday night after he fell into a coma in his cell. The PPS said he died as a result of medical negligence by Israeli prison authorities, holding Israel responsible for his death. Disaster with immediate effect to deal with the country's severe electricity crisis, including prolonged daily power blackouts. Ramaphosa, in his State of the Nation address, said extraordinary circumstances call for extraordinary measures, stressing that the energy crisis is an existential threat to the economy and social fabric. The declaration of a state of disaster comes as rolling power cuts of up to 8 hours per day are hitting homes, factories and businesses across the nation of 60 million. The state of disaster is reportedly an emergency measure previously implemented to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and the deadly floods that killed more than 400 people last year. According to Ramaphosa, the declaration will enable his government to exempt essential services like hospitals and water treatment plants from power blackouts and enable the government buy additional power from neighboring countries on an emergency basis.
Altogether, the National Disaster Management Center has consequently classified the energy crisis and its impact as a disaster. We are therefore declaring a national state of disaster to respond to the electricity crisis and its effect. We know that without a reliable supply of electricity, businesses cannot grow, assembly lines cannot run, crops cannot be irrigated, and basic services are interrupted. Therefore, as we outline our agenda for the year ahead, our most immediate task is to dramatically reduce the severity of load shedding in the coming months and ultimately to end load shedding altogether.
After the break, we will examine how foreign ministers from 3 West African countries that recently underwent military coups have called for their reinstatement into 2 key regional blocs following a trip to the region by Russian envoy Sergei Lavrov. Do stay with us for details on this and more right after the break. Many thanks for staying tuned. Now, foreign ministers from 3 West African countries that recently underwent military coups have called for their reinstatement into 2 regional blocs following a trip to the region by Russian envoy Sergei Lavrov. The top diplomats of Mali, Guinea and Burkina Faso said in a joint statement on Thursday that they had agreed to work together to push for the lifting of their suspensions from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and the African Union, AU. Abdoulaye Diop of Mali, Maurice Sanda Koyate of Guinea, and Burkina Faso's Olivier Ruamba held talks in the Burkinabe capital, Ouagadougou, after Lavrov traveled to Mali earlier in the week to pledge assistance to West African countries battling armed groups. The 3 countries had agreed to pool their efforts and undertake joint initiatives for the lifting of the suspension measures and other restrictions by ECOWAS and the AU, according to a joint statement released after the meeting. A string of coups unfolded in the three countries since 2020, bringing in governments that have bristled at external demands to restore civilian rule, leading to suspensions from regional groups. The statement said mounting insecurity in the Sahel region led the three ministers to agree on the need to combine their efforts and those of the countries of the sub-region and the region to deal with this scourge. Away from that, now, Minister of Public Health Malaki Manoda says Cameroon has restricted movement along its border with Equatorial Guinea following several unexplained deaths from an unknown illness that causes hemorrhagic fever. The restrictions were imposed in view of the high risk of importation of this disease and in order to detect and respond to any cases at an early stage, he said in a statement. Now, investigations are underway and epidemiological surveillance has been strengthened with the support of experts from the World Health Organization (WHO) and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Nicaragua has released 222 political prisoners, including leading opposition figures, student activists, and other critics of longtime President Daniel Ortega, and sent them to the United States in what Washington described as a constructive step. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who said there was one American citizen among the freed prisoners, welcomed their release on Thursday as a step towards addressing human rights abuses in Nicaragua. Blinken said in a statement that the decision also opens the door to further dialogue between the United States and Nicaragua regarding issues of concern, adding that the release was the product of concerted American diplomacy. Now, Barcelona has temporarily broken off ties with Israel over its policy towards Palestine. The Catalan capital has been twinned with Tel Aviv and Gaza for 25 years, but this relationship has been temporarily suspended. Ada Colau, the left-wing mayor of Barcelona, wrote to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday to announce the city would suspend relations until Israel ended the systematic violation of the people of Palestine's human rights. Colau stressed the boycott of Israel did not apply to Israeli or Palestinian people who work to build peace in the Middle East. She said the city council, which does not often involve itself in international politics, had taken the decision after 100 groups and more than 4,000 residents had signed a request to break relations with Israel. In business now, Yahoo plans to cut about 20% of its workforce, or roughly 1,700 jobs, over the next year as the technology industry continues to shed employees ahead of a potential economic slump later this year. Yahoo confirmed with CBS Money Watch that of that number, the internet company will cut 1,000 jobs starting this week. Nearly half of the layoffs at Yahoo, which has been owned by private equity firm Apollo Global Management since 2021, will be in its unprofitable business ad tech unit. That business has not delivered as the company expected. Now, Yahoo believes the move will simplify and strengthen its advertising business for the long run, while enabling Yahoo to deliver better value to its customers and partners. And finally, on Worldview today, composer Burt Bacharach, whose hits such as Do You Know the Way to San Jose and Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, provided a mellow alternative soundtrack to rock and roll in the 1960s and 1970s, has died at the age of 94. This is according to his publicist Tina Browsam, who said Bacharach died of natural causes on Wednesday at his home in the Los Angeles area with his family by his side. His songs, many written in a 16-year collaboration with lyricist Hal David, were neither rock nor strictly pop. They filled American radio broadcasts and were featured in major movies, making them as frequently heard in the 1960s and early 1970s as works by the Beatles, Rolling Stones, and Bob Dylan. Bacharach wrote more than 500 songs, many featuring a tinkling piano and subtly seductive horn hooks. He penned hits for singers ranging from Dionne Warwick to the Carpenters. More than 1,200 artists performed his songs, which won 6 Grammys and 3 Oscars. Bacharach and David had 30 top 40 hits in the 60s alone. And with that, we wrap up our package for you on Worldview today. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. My name is Xavier Robert, reaching you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, and you have been watching Worldview on Spectrum TV. And do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.